everyone. In this video lecture, we will discuss about preprocessors at C. Now, what is a preprocessor? A preprocessor is basically a software program that instructs the compiler to perform the pre-processing task, that is the task before actual compilation. And this pre-processing task include number one, file inclusion. Number two is macro expansion, and number third is conditional compilation. So these are the pre-processing tasks which will be performed by the preprocessor. Now, what is a preprocessor directive? As we can say, a preprocessor is a software program that performs the pre-processing task. So preprocessor directive is basically a pre-processing command which is used to perform these pre-processing tasks. So a preprocessor directive is basically a command which will be used to perform the pre-processing task. And the preprocessor directive will always begin with hash symbol. So if we talk about the first pre-processing task, that is file inclusion, the preprocessor directive that will be used to perform this pre-processing task will be hash include. Number second pre-processing task is macro expansion. And the command that will be used, or we can say the directive that will be used to perform this pre-processing task will be hash define. And in third pre-processing task, we have conditional compilation. And there are various preprocessor directives which will be used for conditional compilation that we will discuss in detail. For example, we have hash if, hash else, and so we will be discussing one by one with the help of example. So let us first discuss the first pre-processing task, that is file inclusion. So the command or the directive which we are using for file inclusion is hash include. So there are two ways to include a file in a C program. Number one is hash include, and within angular brackets, you write file name. For example, hash include, write name of any file like stdio.h. Second method that we can use to include a file in a program is hash include, and instead of using angular brackets, we'll be using double quotes and file name. For example, hash include name of any file. Now, what is the difference between these two methods? If I talk about the first method, this hash include and the file name written in angular brackets, this method will search this file within the include directory only, within the current directory only, not outside of this directory. Whereas in case of second method, it will search this file first in the current directory, and then it will start searching from the parent directory. Here, the first method can be used for the predefined files or the files which are already stored in the system library, C library. And this method, second method, can also be used for user-defined header files. So this is the difference between the methods of including a file. So second pre-processing task, and most important, is macro expansion. Now, what is a macro? First, let us discuss the syntax of macro. The preprocessor directive that will be used for macro is hash define. Then we will be writing macro name or any identifier, and then we'll be using writing value of this macro in the form of string or any constant. This is the basic syntax of using a macro. Now, what is a macro? A macro is basically a name given to a piece of code, or we can say a part of a code. For example, if I write hash define and I have created a macro as capital A and I'm given its value as 20. So what it will do? Before compilation, the value of A, wherever you have used A in the program, the value of A will be substituted, will be replaced by 20. And this substitution process is called as macro expansion. Now, what are the advantages of using macros? The first advantage is it is easier to modify, to perform modifications in your program, and it becomes easier to debug your programs, and we do not have to write a piece of code again and again. You can simply write a macro name instead of a piece of a program. Let us take an example. And here I have declared a macro like A whose value is 30, and so this is the code, and here we have defined a macro A whose value is 30. So before compilation, the code will look like here A will be replaced by 30. So now when you actually compile the program, the output of this program will be 30. So this value 30 would have been replaced before the actual compilation of the program. So this is the basic working of a macro. And we generally use capital letters just to differentiate it from the normal variables. But it is not mandatory to always use capital letters, and never put a semicolon after defining a macro. So these are some rules of defining a macro. Now we can use macro in different, according to different types. So we'll discuss about the types of macros. So number one is simple macro. And number two is macro with argument or function, or macro as a function. And number third is nested macro. So we will discuss the types of macros with the help of example of each. So number one is simple macro. Let us take an example. Here I have defined a macro named as pi, and let's take its value as 3.14. Okay, generally we declare a macro before the main function or outside the main function, but it is not mandatory. You can define a macro anywhere in the program. Now, the program is to calculate area of a circle and radius, let's say 4.5. And let's write the formula of area of circle, that is pi r square. So if I write pi into r and print the value of area. So here pi is a macro whose value is 3.14. This 3.14 will be substituted throughout the program where you have used pi. So you have used pi here. So this pi will be replaced by 3.14 before the actual compilation of this program. So it will look like 3.14 into r into r. Now when you compile this program, this r has value 4.4, which will be substituted here, and accordingly area will be calculated. So this is an example of simple macro. Next, we can also use a macro as we can use just like a function, or we can say macro with argument. So let us take an example. And I've given the definition as x into x. Here I've declared a macro with argument. So here I have used the macro square of a. So what is the definition of square of x? In case of a square of a, it will be replaced by the definition that square of x is replaced by x into x. So similarly, square of a will be replaced as a into a along with the parenthesis. So value of a is 3. So when we compile this program, it will look like 3 into 3. So y will get 3 into 3, that is 9. So value will be. So we can use a macro just like a function with argument or a macro with argument. One important point to be noted here is that always enclose the function, the macro definition in parentheses. When we are using macro with argument, it is user's responsibility to enclose the string or the definition of this macro in parentheses. If we do not do so, maybe you will get unexpected output. So next type of macro is nested macro, that is macro within a macro. For example, hash define square of x as x into x, and I'm defining another macro hash cube of x as a square of x into x. So here I have declared I'm using a macro as cube of x, in definition of which I have used the another macro, that is the square of x. So this is an example of nested macro, that is macro within a macro. How it will work? So let us discuss. Okay. So here I have used cube of a. So before compilation, this cube of a, that is cube of x, will be replaced as square of a into a. Now this is square of a will be replaced accordingly, that is a into a into a. So before compilation, your code will look like this. And after you compile the program, value of a will be substituted here. So it will become 3 into 3 into 3, that is 27 will be the output. So these are the various types of macros. And you can also use a macro. You can also use a complete statement in the definition of a macro. For example, if I write hash include stdio.h, hash define h, and define h as printf hello, void main, for example, I have defined a very macro as h whose definition is printf hello. So this h will be replaced by printf hello. Similarly, the second h will also be replaced by printf hello before the compilation. And when you compile this program, you will simply get output as hello printed 2 times. So you can simply use an entire statement in the definition of method. Thank you so much.